Misbehaviors in organizations affect performance and revenue. It is important to have preventative strategies to reduce the impact on efficiency. The purpose of this presentation is to explore misbehavior in organizations by analyzing the power themes identified in the video from the report. These are lying, rudeness and bullying, gossiping, and struggles related to time. We answer three main questions of the misbehaviors identified. The first question is, how are these power themes being used? The second, what are the consequences, impacts, and effects of power within the video? Third, how do these examples of power translate into a workplace context, and how can we manage it?
Our clip starts with an office scene, a clear example of an organisation that permits organisational deceit. It starts with two people speaking. Denham, the company's director, who portrays himself as a very powerful dictator manager. He seems to be aware, however, that Jen, a new employee on her first day, has been deceitful on her CV. Now, this lie seems to fit with Denham, so he chooses to use it in his favour by appointing Jen to be manager of a troubled department of nerds. Denham's seat of power in his company is clear by the exchange of alternating but contradicting questions that leaves no doubt that Denham is king. When an organisation hires people like Denham and Jen, it opens itself up to immense risk. People who are ready to lie on their CV are often the same type of people who are ready to commit corporate crimes. So some of these crimes are crimes like theft, fraud, and embezzlement. The consequences for crimes like this in a business are huge. A decrease in productivity and a decrease in profitability. These decreases come because the person who lied on their CV doesn't actually have the skills they said they did, so they can't do the job. This leads to a skill shortage in the business. And so in an attempt to increase profit, the business increases its training. This in turn decreases profitability even further. Eventually, the staff member might need to be replaced. And again, this decreases profitability even further because of recruitment costs. It can also decrease staff morale. In the end, job loss for the person lying on the CV, but for the business, it could end in bankruptcy. Organisations that permits and uses deceit destroys their employees' trust. Trust is vital in a workplace context and allows work relationships to grow. Any relationships with no trust do not work. So when an organisation who has in the past destroyed this trust, but who now want to manage its way through their situation, it will need to change the ethos of the company. This change will stop the deceitful behaviours. By changing the ethos, it will change the culture, which will change the behaviours. This is done through potentially changing managers, open, transparent group discussions, and private one-on-one discussions, taking responsibility for past deceits done by the company.
The second misbehaviour seen in the video clip is rudeness and bullying. Roy and Moss both display rudeness over the phone to colleagues who are calling them for IT assistance. Roy implies that his caller is incompetent with computers, saying, "I'm sorry, are you from the past?" when the caller does not know how to turn on their computer. Moss also displays rudeness over the phone as he makes up nonsense to address his caller's issue. Both Roy and Moss are utilizing rudeness and bullying to exert power over those they perceive to be less competent with computers than they are. However, outside the IT office, Roy and Moss become targets of bullies, as Roy explains that a woman he had helped earlier in the day rested her coffee cup on his back while he fixed her computer. This widespread bullying suggests that the organization has an accepted culture of rudeness and bullying. Rudeness and bullying have consequences for both the individual and organization. For the individual, being bullied can lead to a number of health issues, including increased stress, depression, blood pressure problems, and ulcers. Impacted individuals will also experience a lack of trust towards management and all co-workers. Bullying also brings about a reduction in job satisfaction as the workplace becomes an uncomfortable environment. There's also an increase in Machiavellian tendencies as individuals seek to protect their own interests over those of the organization or others. For the organization, rudeness and bullying reduces productivity, creativity, and innovation within the organization, and may also cause increased staff turnover as staff leave the organization to escape the rudeness and bullying present. Rudeness and bullying are an attempt to exert power over others and decision-making processes. To manage rudeness and bullying, managers need to set clear expectations around what is considered acceptable behavior within the workplace, with consequences outlined for unacceptable behavior. Managers will see an improvement in culture and behavior. There is also the potential for the problematic employees to leave the organization rather than reform their behavior, allowing the organization to create a better culture through new recruits.
The third identified power theme is gossip, used by Roy to share news of frustration caused by a co-worker from a different department. Roy asserts his loyalty to his team by highlighting the differences between the IT department and the rest of the organization. This allows him to cement credibility from Moss, who supports his justified attitude towards the organization and its members. The consequence, impact, and effect of gossip may appear negligible to managers since this behavior is part of everyday work life. However, as observed in the video, Ron's gossiping is increasing antagonism between co-workers and supporting negative attitude towards the organization. This behavior causes employees to lose morale and mistrust each other and the organization. Furthermore, it continues to widen the gap between the departments and affect performance for the worst. It is important that managers avoid partaking in such a behavior and are proactive at minimizing gossip between teams. In the workplace, the simple act of talking about a peer that is not present may be an indicator that something is wrong. In order to effectively manage gossip, managers should start by ensuring organizations have conducive policies in place to support employees and managers emotionally and intellectually. Management should investigate the type of support the misbehaving employee is lacking. Is it increased autonomy, allocation of resources, or does he or she require more challenging work? If the support mechanisms from both the organization and the managers are controlled, the results will be an engaged workforce with increased levels of trust, morality, confidence, and loyalty towards the organization.
The fourth and final power theme we identified is the struggle relating to time, also known as production deviance. This form of misbehavior exists as a way for lower-level employees to push back against the organizational hierarchy and exert some power of their own. It appears when employees attempt to control the amount and the speed at which they work, limiting production output. The organization wants efficiency, while the employee, in contrast, seeks to slow down their efforts or stop altogether. Employees can use this instead of a more overt, direct form of misbehavior. In the example video, Roy delays answering the phone for as long as possible. The caller has an issue that he can solve, but his low morale, lack of motivation, and desire to exert power over others sees him slow down in a move that is to the detriment of his own department and the organization as a whole. There are two main consequences when faced with the appearance of this type of misbehavior. First, it's a misappropriation of organizational resources, reducing production and efficiency. Second, it's a contagious form of misbehavior that spreads without proper management. Production deviance is essentially a misuse of company resources. The organization is paying wages and allocating resources to the staff member and not receiving a fair return on this investment. The IT department in this video would be seen as slow and inefficient throughout the rest of the organization, resulting in the hire of a new manager. When delaying or avoiding work, the employee is not only affecting their own department, but all other areas of the organization. The behavior, when not dealt with, can be seen as acceptable by others, spread to new employees throughout the department and the rest of the organization as a whole. It is likely that his team members would view Roy's behavior as acceptable and copy it, leading to greater problems. So how do we manage and solve the problem of struggles relating to time? First, we should appreciate that it is a common issue, especially amongst lower status employees. These employees are expected to conform to organizational norms and yet tend to adopt self-attenuating ideals of equality and what is right, returning us to its use as a way of fighting back against the organization. Stricter supervision can exacerbate the problem. The problem thus becomes one able to be solved with organizational solutions and individual solutions. On an organizational level, management can strive to improve morale and motivation and change the cultural issues that are driving the problem. On an individual level, efforts to reduce the desire to push back against the organization include offering opportunities to increase responsibilities and widening the role. This presentation explored the topic of working with power, focusing on workplace misbehavior. We identified 4 examples of misbehavior: lying, rudeness and bullying, gossip, and struggles relating to time. All 4 examples led to a reduction in productivity and destroy workplace harmony. All 4 were seen as deriving from issues with organizational culture, which creates the desire and enables each form of misbehavior. Management can reduce instances of each problem through communication, cultural changes, and role management.